GOAT district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text, that trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We're back in the GOAT District for a monster special edition tonight. Part 2 of the GOAT District High Stakes Fantasy Football Roundtable. It's not round. I know you're looking at the screen. It's square. We get it. But we're here to pick the brains of a couple high stakes studs. I'm going to let Theo do the proper intro. I never want to miss a beat on either of these guys. Theo, roll in the red carpet proper for our two GOATs tonight.
So I'm really pleased we could put this one together. The first High Stakes Roundtable was terrific. This second High Stakes Roundtable, we have two people who have been in the district multiple times before, two guys that are friends of mine, and two guys I really, really respect their opinions on players and also the way they approach fantasy football strategy-wise. BiLLY WASOSKY is pretty much a honorary GOAT at this point. He's been on the GOAT District maybe five plus times at this point, something like that, BiLLY. BiLLY is an NFFC Hall of Famer. He won the RotoWire Online Championship last year. I compete against him in several leagues. I don't know why I keep doing that to myself, but I compete against him in multiple leagues, and I've done so over the years. So I've gotten to know him. And how you doing tonight, BiLLY?
I'm doing great. Always a pleasure to be on. Love to talk to some football. Great to be here, as always.
Awesome, BiLLY. And now we're also joined tonight by BiPLAB Mandal, who's a buddy of mine. We actually split a main event team. He's one of the best FFPC players around. He's also in the NFFC streets these days. We're actually in a prime time I'm in a prime time against both of these guys, which we drafted in Las Vegas, the last one of the season. And Bip, how many NFFC teams did you do this year, Bip?
Yeah, not a lot. I think couple of main events, few RotoWires, and a lot of best ball and cut line.
Bip is excellent on all levels of fantasy. You'll see him do very well in the dynasty streets, in the best ball streets. He won the Pros versus Joes in 2021, Bip, or was it 2020?
No, it was 3 years back. Hudson, Kern, Reeve, and we teamed up on that one.
Yeah, so both of these guys have an extensive level of success. They play at some of the highest stakes going and across multiple formats. So I think this is a fantastic set of guys tonight to kind of go over some of the things that we've seen in the first 5 weeks of the season and maybe be forward thinking with the things we expect to see for the rest of the season.
Theo, let me jump in before we get into this. I know you're like jonesing and get to the good stuff, and we're not going to waste anyone's time. We're going to get to the good stuff. I just want to remind real quick the peeps, guys, smash the like. We're bringing the big guests. Smash the likes for tonight's guests. And go check out Theo's show, man. He dropped a waiver wire show earlier today. You don't want to miss it. That's why I'm interrupting. I know waivers are tonight for some, but most likely tomorrow. So tonight, right after this show, tomorrow morning, make sure you check out Theo's show, The Live Wire. And we had Mario Puig here yesterday for the Monday Tailgate. A lot of good information on that. So check that out. Theo, get back to it, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, JD. And I think that our waiver wire show in the GOAT District is guys that I can pick up in the NFFC, the FFPC, and the FFWC. A couple of the guys won't be available in those leagues, but I'd say 80% of the guys I'm talking about are for deeper formats. So there's a lot of people this week telling you to go get Kenneth Walker and to go pick up Rashad White. That would be nice. Because I don't think we're going to have those opportunities in our league.
We
So
were literally just saying how none of us have any of those guys on our waiver wires. We're like looking around. We're like, where are these guys? What are they talking about?
it's like two different Americas when there's fantasy football podcasts. You know, there's some people that play in shallower leagues, and those are fun. But if you're in 20-man leagues, a lot of the information out there is just not going to help you. Me, telling you to go see if George Pickens is still available is not going to help you in 99% of the leagues we're in. So if you want to hear about guys like Greg Dulcich and Wan'Dale Robinson, come and listen to the GOAT District, and we got you covered. First off, not on the show sheet, but we saw a wild ending to last night's game. That was a tremendous Monday Night Football game. What do you guys think will be the fallout with the Davante Adams situation? Maybe kind of go around the table if anybody has any thoughts about that.
Bip, go ahead.
Yeah, I was talking to JD about it before we started the show. We'll have to wait and watch because NFL these days very extra sensitive. Back in the days, I would say he gets a hefty fine, but doesn't get suspended. But you never know what happens. I still feel he'll fined and not get suspended.
Dan, I almost called I'm telling you, I almost called started calling hospitals. You're 6 minutes late. You've never been late. And now we've done hundreds of these, Dan. You got to let me know.
It's a long story. It involves a pontoon boat and a bad axle. And so.
I love it. All right. Yeah. Sorry, but I didn't mean to interrupt, man. But I was just texting Dan. I'm like, are you okay, buddy? Because I haven't heard from you. All right, cool. We're good.
Billy, any thoughts on the situation with Davante?
I pretty much agree with Bip. I think there's going to be a slap on the wrist, a good fine from it. I don't think he's going to get suspended. It's just not a good look, though. I mean, I know you saw probably before that, he went on the sideline, he slams his helmet, and then you're pushing a camera. I mean, you got to control it. You just got to, at this level, you got to control it. I'm sure you're frustrated. I mean, I guess he was frustrated because he and Renfro ran into each other, but I'm like, well, somebody, it was your own teammate that it's not like, somebody ran the wrong route. So I don't know. I don't think anything's going to come of it. I'd be surprised.
Dan, do you think anything differently? Do you think he gets a game?
I think he gets a game. Yeah. I mean, just the look of it was bad. And the NFL gonna want no part of that. They need to, they're looking like they've got things under control. So yeah, they're gonna suspend him a game.
I think he gets a game as well. I think that it's just the optics were terrible, and it's really awful timing because you get the 27 points from Davante Adams, get a big performance, then he's going to go on the bye week for you. You might be looking at a double bye week, kind of a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, sorry. I just saw it for the first time. There's no way he doesn't get suspended. He literally, it's not like he bumps into him. He literally pushes the kid full extension, both arms.
I will say there's some different camera angles where it looks like the guy's walking into, but I agree with you, JD. He pushed them.
Yeah, you look at the different camera angles. I mean, there's no question that they were going to run into each other some way or another.
And what didn't help is he tried to conditionally apologize on Twitter, right? I mean, that makes it look even more awful. I mean, if you're sorry, just say sorry, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's not I'm sorry, but it's just I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. And he's got, he's a guy that's been in the league a long time and never had any problems. And I think the league, will put that into effect. It's not like a guy who's gotten into a bunch of issues and then this happens. So it'll be something to monitor. But what a fantastic game, to go from the Colts and Broncos to that. For our primetime game was like, come on, man, that's not so bad. But let's just dive right into it. With the bye weeks coming up, how do you guys approach them? We've got 4 teams on bye this week, 4 teams next week, and then 2 the following. What's your general bye week strategy? Start with Billy on this one.
I mean, mine's pretty simple. I kind of try to be a week ahead on everything. I'm looking in week 5 at week 6, week 6 and 7, and so on. The main thing you're looking at, little things are like the kickers and defense thing. But, you're looking at your bench and you're looking at, I had one team this week. I had one of my prime times. It had 6 guys that were out. They were out. So teams like that, you got to be concerned because you get a bye, you get somebody who's healthy in a bye. Now you got 7 possibly, and you really got to stay on top of those things and stay on the waiver wire. But I try to stay a week ahead on everything.
How about you, Bip?
Yeah, I think this is where your bench comes into play, right? And that's why you drafted a bench. And I think I'm probably going to get lucky in some leagues because I drafted a lot of Alec Pierce and George Pickens, and I think I feel comfortable now putting them in those flex spots where for next few weeks. And there's not much out there on the waivers, right? So pretty much otherwise what Billy said, you are planning 2-3 weeks ahead, making sure you have enough juice on your bench or picking up some floor guys the best you can from waivers and preparing for that.
Dan?
Yeah, totally. This is why the last 8 rounds of your draft matter.
Yeah.
You want to have that bench. You need to have that bench because even if you don't need it for injuries, sooner or later you're going to need it for bye weeks. And now is a time where you want to be able to you want to be able to throw in a George Pickens. You want to be able to throw in an Alec Pierce. You want to have Kenneth Walker sitting on your bench, not on the waiver wire. People, obviously he's not there in any league that really matters.
Dan missed our whole rant. Dan's ranting again. I love it.
I know. Sorry.
I
mean, I just.
We already did it for you. Don't worry. But keep going, man. It's all good.
So anyway, yeah, that's why you want to have those guys. And to the point of looking 2 weeks ahead. Yeah, this is a time where you definitely want to be looking 2 weeks ahead, especially when you have bye weeks coming up that are going to be 4 or 6 teams. Like week 7, we're going to have 4 teams on bye. I want to know, what are my defenses and kickers that are going to be affected, and is there just like some dead weight on my roster and really nothing great on the waiver wire where I can just drop a player and I can pick up that extra kicker or defense and just be that week ahead. I'm not going to do it if it's going to cost me somebody that I really care about. But if I don't, if there's a player that I don't really care about and I can't find anything on the waiver wire, absolutely, I'm looking that week ahead and I'm just getting them.
Do you guys carry? So the Buffalo Bills defense would be one that I think we would agree that we would not want to cut when it comes to, holding two or one-off positions. How about a reliable kicker like a Daniel Carlson? Are you trying to keep him on your roster, or are you willing to let him go, or is it case specific? Maybe everybody go around. Your thoughts on carrying 2 kickers and defenses, essentially. Start with Billy again on that.
The defense is definitely. I'm probably in the minority here. I will carry 2 defenses a lot, and if I look ahead 3-4 weeks, and if I can play a couple matchups, it has not gone so well so far because Green Bay's defense was just atrocious on Sunday. I couldn't believe. I just thought that was the prime matchup against the Giants with all their receivers out, but they were terrible. But a lot of times I'll keep 2 defenses. But you're right with Buffalo. Yeah, I'm not going to throw Buffalo back into the pool. The Eagles are solid right now. Fairly solid. They didn't have a great week this week. But as for kickers, there's only a select few I would do that with, and I probably don't have a ton of them. It'd be like Tucker, Carlson, and maybe McPherson, maybe. But I don't even know with that one. Maybe throw him back in. I have a lot of great McManus, which has worked out semi-okay because Denver can't get in the end zone, so that's nice. But and by the way, with that, did anybody else realize they've been on primetime 4 times in the first 6 weeks?
That's and you insane. Get him again. You get him again this week, Billy.
That's what I'm saying. Who thought of it? I guess they thought Russ was going to be like this. He was going to be Josh Allen this year, apparently. But anyhow, yeah. Going back to that, I don't with the kickers. I'm not as concerned about them, but the defenses, I will try to play the matchups as best I can.
About you, Bip? Are you carrying doubling down a defense or kicker?
Defense, except the elite ones, probably like Buffalo, maybe San Francisco. I like Eagles. I like Jacksonville. Those are the 4 I'm liking. I might carry them, when it hits their bye weeks. Kicker for me right now, I'm probably cutting Carlson, and here is the reason why I'm cutting Carlson. 2 reasons. One, I know I will spend a lot getting him back if I want to, and I'm good with that. Or, there's Butker in 80% of my leagues right now on waivers, and I'm going to pick up I know I can get Butker or Carlson again next week. Again, we have to see what happens with Butker, right? And, I'll just give away one tip. What I'm trying to even do early this week is cut Carlson, get Butker, wait till Sunday, and then decide on that waiver if Butker is going to play or not, right? So various strategies, but I don't like keeping multiple kickers. Now, if I have McPherson or Tucker, I'll probably find someone else to go.
Dan, you doubling down?
And like Billy and Bip said, it's kind of dependent. Like the defenses, I'm definitely holding on to Philly anywhere that I've got them. I think they're a really good defense. I love having a solid defense connected with a great offense, because it just puts so much pressure on the opposing offense. It causes them to do things they don't want to do, and that usually leads to defensive points. I don't have Buffalo anywhere because I don't draft defenses in the 12th round. And for kickers, I'll the few places where
he's got to leave the job in there.
I'm just saying.
Because I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
So anyway, but kickers, if it's Tucker, sure, almost anybody except for Tucker. The way I look at it, if I'm dropping my kicker early, because he has an early bye, I'm going to be able to pick up somebody else 3 weeks down the line that's going to carry me through. I'm a lot more comfortable, mixing and matching at kicker, because, those, like, defense is a good defense. With kickers, it really is kind of more game specific.
JD, I know you love having Justin Tucker on our main event team. It's nice to know you have a reliable kicker there.
Well, Dan and I was looking through our teams. We have him on some teams that we own as well. It's just, there's two things. It's the kicker. It's rare that I'm gonna have two. My defense, I'm more likely, because I'm kind of casting a net. Dan and I, I don't know, when we draft, I do the same thing on my teams. I'm trying to, I have a lot of Tampa Bay because their bye weeks are week 11. I have a lot of defenses and kickers that have late bye weeks that I don't even have to think about it for a while. But if I do, we have Philly and Tyler Bass, Dan, I think, on one of our rosters.
Yes.
Again, the defense I'm most likely to keep for a week, just to kind of make sure. And like Billy, I don't mind holding two good defenses as we get further into the season, because it's easier to play matchups with them versus the kickers are kind of, you rather get a good kicker and be able to play them every week, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's just specific to the kicker or defense. I try not to, as often as possible. I want to have a live bench where I'm not carrying two of the one-offs. And I think one thing that resonated me with what you said, I thought Bip made a good point, especially where we're keeping an eye on the future bye weeks. You want to have a couple of these floor play guys. Having a floor play guy that you can plug in and get your 10 points can be very valuable, especially in formats where points matter. It leaves you in a position where you're not going to overpay for a weak waiver wire ad in order to fill an empty roster spot. So I think there was a lot of good stuff from you guys on that. But we got to keep moving forward here. We're going to first talk about a few teams in the NFL, the good, the bad, and the ugly. One team that has been a fantastic surprise for fantasy is the Seattle Seahawks. They've been one of the best fantasy storylines all year. As an NFL team, they're kind of a fun 2-3 team that kind of is punching above their weight class. They're 7th in points per game in the league as a team. Tyler Lockett's wide receiver 8, DK Metcalf's wide receiver 19. Both are averaging around 15 or more points per game. Geno Smith is quarterback 7 overall. And now Kenneth Walker looks set to pay off big for people that are rostering him. I'd have him as a mid-level, RB2 level type player. How long can Seattle keep this up? They play Arizona this week. Maybe we'll pass it around. We'll start with Bip for this one. What's your general thoughts on Seattle? And do you think that this is a team that can kind of keep it going in terms of their offensive success?
Yeah, I would still classify them as a pretender, in my opinion. So if you look at Seattle, right, they didn't score a ton of points versus Denver, the opening game, or San Francisco, which was a strong defense, and then they lit it up in the other games. So, of course, Metcalf, Lockett, great receivers. Geno's chucking it down there. They'll have their see, but I just don't think it is sustainable. They have some tough matchups down the road. Kansas City, 49ers again, during the tournament playoff time. So I still have my question marks there, but hey, we'll take it as long as it continues. I think they again have a good week, down the stretch. They have some easier games, I would say, versus Cardinals, Chargers,
Billy?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Bip. I wasn't really on this offense. The guy I do have a decent amount of is Tyler Lockett, simply because he was going later, definitely the Metcalf. I thought he was a value compared to what people were thinking Metcalf. I really didn't have the running game at all. I have, I think, 2 shares of Kenneth Walker. I mean, Geno's he's been like the surprise guy that nobody's really talking about. He's been phenomenal. I mean, he's kind of reminds me of Steven Willie Beeman from Any Given Sunday. He just came in and he's just lighting it up, and he's having a fantastic. The passes he threw the other day to Lockett, that second one was unbelievable.
It was Mahomes-like. It was ridiculous.
It was a dime. I mean, he dropped that thing in there.
I don't know if you guys do the prop bets, but his props. He was 2 weeks ago. His rushing yards was 6.5. He ran for 49 yards. They bumped him up to 7.5 last week, and he got like 18. I'm like, this is. But anyway, that's sidebar. The point I'm getting is, they're playing well. I do agree with Bip. Let's see what they do against a really good defense like San Francisco and those guys. But hey, right now, ride the wave, I guess, while you can, especially with Arizona coming up.
And I think that Arizona game is super interesting because you've had kind of an Arizona's team we'll touch on shortly, but you have a team who's kind of been underachieving, who had bigger expectations versus a team that's overachieving. It's a divisional matchup. It's going to be a high total. That game's going to say a lot with how both teams kind of approach it. Dan, your thoughts on Seattle? Anything to add?
Yeah, so I'm riding Seattle as long as they're providing good times. I'm going to definitely ride them. I just put something up on the screen here. Hopefully you guys can see it. But Seattle is.
Can you make it bigger, Dan? Like magnify it anyway?
I can see it.
Just in the browser there. No.
Click on the 3 dots there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Top right. 3 dots.
Dan, I'm 52 years old, man. I need to get my readers out to see that.
That's exactly why I can't see shit.
I think this is as big as I can make it. But look at Seattle here, which is like the 6th offense down the row. 27% of their first downs are creating another first down. 51% of their second downs, first or second downs are creating a first down. And they're at 74% on their first, second, or third downs creating a first down. They're one of the best offenses in the league. And then it gets better than that because if you look at their defenses now look at the very bottom of the screen. The very bottom defense is Seattle. 26% of the time they're allowing a first down on first down. 52% of the time they're allowing a first down on first or second down. And 76% of the time, the absolute worst defense in the league. When I can get a great offense paired with a crap defense, I'm riding that as much and as long as I can.
So how are they, Dan? How are they 28th in rush attempts and 24th in pass attempts? Are they just a slow offense? Are they just not getting the offense on the field a lot? Like how does that work?
Yeah, I pay less attention to what they are in rush attempts or what they are in pass attempts or anything like that. I'm looking at what are they achieving with those attempts, because you can be slow and still be good, or you can be fast and not and still be very inefficient. So we want teams that are being efficient with their the downs that they're given, and Seattle is doing that. So
now, do you think that efficiency is sustainable at this point for the rest of the season, or how do you?
I mean, it's sustainable until it's not. I mean, what are we seeing that looks really unsustainable about this, other than we have this predisposition that we think Geno sucks?
And I think you nailed it. I think that he's on fire. And also you have they're letting him play his game, and he's consistently feeding his top 2 targets. So we talk about the narrow passing tree in Miami.
That's
he's got
exactly
the narrow,
it.
And those guys win, deep, and those guys win intermediate. And now they had, I think Walker is interesting because there's a chance that Walker elevates that offense. If we remember in the preseason, they made the point of saying that Kenneth Walker was going to be our receiving back, and people just kind of brushed that under the rug. So I think there's a chance that he sees a more receiving work certainly than Penny, and I think that team's super exciting. And just JD, your point on total plays per game. Seattle doesn't wow you in terms of where they are in terms of like how many plays per game, but the number one team in most plays per game is Arizona, who's middling at like 20 points per game right now as a team. So I think that can be a little bit misleading. Like Philadelphia,
Arizona is super inefficient right now. Because they're only 21% of their first downs, which is one of the lowest percentages in the league, are achieving first downs. They're much better on second downs. They're actually first and second downs are one of the best, but they're struggling right now. And actually, I'm sorry, I was thinking defense. Only 17% of their first downs. That's one of the lowest percentages in the league, where they're succeeding on first down, getting another first down out of it. They're at 50% on their second downs, which is kind of middle of the pack. So this is
and today I don't know if you guys heard Eli Manning was on the McAfee show talking about Geno, just talking about how he's watching him, he just sees him making really good decisions, and because he's making those good decisions and not just like trying to force plays, then the offensive coordinator is more willing to let him take more responsibility, try more riskier plays, right? Because he's not necessarily he'll check it down or get rid of it if he needs to. So just a little note. I was just trying to play devil's advocate with Dan's fancy graph there, but and the other thing, guys, let's remember most of these Seattle pieces are cheap, right? You got them cheap wherever you got them in most cases, because so at least if with what you're getting, you got it. Like Dan said, you got to ride the wave. I think at this point.
Yeah, and let's hammer again that point that Theo made. Narrow passing tree here. Very narrow, and usage tree in general. You're basically looking at 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, and then pick your flavor at tight end. I'm not going to try to figure out the tight ends. Whatever it is. But it wide receiver and running back, it's very easy to figure out.
Another team that started off extremely quickly was Detroit. Even with their fantasy dud this past weekend in New England, they're still third in the NFL in scoring at 28 points per game. What are your fantasy expectations for them coming off of a bye? Start with Billy on this one.
I think they're going to get things back. ARSB played on Sunday. He obviously wasn't effective. You could see it in the warm-ups. He just wasn't, it was one of those things. I think you had to play him if you had him, just on the off chance that things worked out. But the fact he's going to get an additional 2 weeks to rest, put him back in, get Chark back in. I mean, the writing was on the wall, in my opinion, when they went up to New England. Belichick, they were going to just scheme for them, and it was going to be – I didn't think it was going to be that bad, but it was bad. But I think they pick it right back up. Just like Dan showed on that chart, if I remember correctly, Detroit's, I believe, right above Seattle. So, like Dan said, you're talking about a horrible defense and a good offense, and it all just mixes together. And then when you add Swift back into the mix, because he should be back, I mean, that offense is fun to watch. It really is. They're a 35, 40-point offense every week if things are clicking.
And, Billy, your thoughts on Jameson Williams, who could also be back quickly. I mean, relatively quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one more chip they have to add to everything. I mean, my goodness, that's a nasty offense if you think about it. You got Jameson Williams, you got DJ Chark, you got ARCB, you got Hawkinson, you got Swift and Jamal Williams. Now you're looking at, Jared Goff. I mean, I picked him up a few weeks ago. Maybe I should have picked up Geno, but Jared Goff looks like he could be decent down the stretch. He really does. I mean, he could be a guy that you can fill in.
Bip, your thoughts?
Yeah, and also they like Josh Reynolds, who's quietly.
He's like a wide receiver. He's like a high-end wide receiver 3 right now. Josh Reynolds is like wide receiver 24 right now.
Surprised, and I'm more hopeful of the Detroit schedule and offense over Seattle. Personal choice. I mean, they showed it last year. They have more explosive players, a lot more options. I mean, sometimes they don't even use Hawkinson, but he showed us, last week what he could do. I just feel they have a couple of tough games. I think they take on Buffalo down the road, and I mean, while they are coming off by the Dallas game, it's not going to be easy when they are at Dallas. But otherwise, I look at their schedule and the teams, and they know how to put up points. It's going to be a fun team to watch.
Dan and JD, anything to add on Detroit? We talked about this with the 1st and 15 guys. Our thoughts on Ben Johnson, how great an offensive coordinator he is. Maybe anything to add on your thoughts post-bye?
I mean, post-bye, I think it's going to be pretty much the same. And Detroit suffers from the same fate as Seattle in that they have a defense that just cannot get off the field. So in a way that kind of limits their offense a little bit because, when your defense can't get off the field, your offense is not on the field. But on the other hand, it puts a lot more pressure on the offense to do good things when they do get on the field. So, I love seeing those efficient offenses along with inefficient defenses. So, both Seattle and Detroit have those.
Yeah, it says 7th in the league first downs per game. So I mean, when they're on the field, they're good. And like the guy said, they're fun to watch. You always like to have a fun. Amron is definitely fun to have on your roster when he puts up those crazy Cooper Cup games, and you hope he comes back and he can keep that going. But no, I like this offense. Look, we saw TJ Hawk go off the other week and win you a week with 40 some points. I know he did for me. So you like to see these firework games from any offense. So if you can get it from Detroit now, it just adds more to your artillery.
Yeah, Jameson Williams for me is going to be a big factor. I have him stashed a few places, and the success of Josh Reynolds, and like you said, JD, the success of TJ Hawkinson that one game. I mean, Hawkinson did nothing this weekend, but when he was the only guy there, they schemed to get him the ball. I think Ben Johnson is very sharp in terms of getting the right guy the ball in the right situation, not force feeding it to a particular guy.
Yep.
It's built around Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you're going to see Jameson Williams. He might be a better and best ball type guy for the rest of the year, but he's going to have a couple of smash games, I believe.
When do you guys expect him? When do you guys expect him? Because I think this I mean, if he's soon enough.
Today I heard that there's a chance he comes back right after the bye week. Now, they're not going to rush him. They've made a point of saying this is a guy that they're not going to rush. But I think that he'll be, let's say, I think he will be there by Halloween. I think that's pretty safe. I think end of the month, and if not sooner. So he is coming. And when you get all those guys healthy together, they have 5 receiving weapons, 2 running backs who have been very successful, and the best offensive line in football. So they're a 1-4 team, but they have an aggressive coaching staff, and they have a lot of pieces. So they're a lot of fun. We got to talk about a couple of teams that are not so fun, though, right now, guys. Last night we talked about this with Mario Puig. I'll ask you guys the same question, but a little different. Of these 3 offenses, who do you have the most hope of turning it around and seeing improvement from? We'll call them, teams that people were kind of stacking in Denver and Los Angeles, and then the Indianapolis Colts. All 3 of them have been very disappointing. Billy, who would be of those 3 your pick, or can be none, that you're having confidence can get better as the season moves along?
If I'm going to pick one, it's going to be Denver, and it's going to be contingent on Nathaniel Hackett's going to be fired very soon so that they could seriously turn things around. That's halfway kidding, but not really. Truthfully, out of those 3, I think they're the ones that could turn it around the quickest. That Rams offensive line is bad. It is bad. And I don't know what they're going to do to fix that, but it's creating all kinds of problems. I just saw Wayne popped in. They're not the Colts. I totally agree with Wayne as well. Matt Ryan just looks atrocious right now. He looks terrible. He looks skittish. It's awful. So I would have to say Denver. Obviously, I'm not hitching my wagons to them. But if you're going to, out of those 3, that's who I would go with.
Pip?
Yeah, I don't know if any of these 3 teams will turn it around this year. It's hard to choose. I do agree with everything Billy said. I mean, I'm surprised Hackett still has a job after the last 2 games and those bad decisions. Now, it might be that they know more about Russell Wilson's injury and not running a bunch of plays. I don't know, but yeah. So that's that. Now, the Rams play in a difficult division, so I just don't see how they will turn it around with Seattle balling now, and then there's 49ers and Arizona. And then, that's my worry also with Denver, right? They're in a tough division. So, Indiana, Matt Ryan is washed out. So I'm not hoping any of these teams turn around, right? But like Billy said, if I had to choose one, it has to be Denver, and that's about it.
And JD and Dan, we talked enough about this last night. I don't want you guys to get sick to your stomach talking about bad offenses. So I'll switch to some.
I just want to read these, Theo. Theo.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, we lost them. I just want to read these. Look, you guys remember these three teams coming into the season, okay? Look at their odds right now to win the Super Bowl, okay? The Colts, plus 4,400. Denver, plus 5,200. The Rams are the best, the best right now, plus 2,000. But who would have thought coming into this season, the odds on these guys winning the Bowl? I'm pretty sure those three were, up there in the top, maybe 5-6 favorite, if I'm not mistaken.
And you'll see right now, Dan is represented by a picture of himself in the 1980s.
Yep.
This is not Gardner Minshew. This is actually how Dan looked in the 1980s. So there you go. But I want to start. We'll start with Dan and JD. Dan and JD, we've talked about bad offenses now for 2 nights in a row.
Let me throw in real quick. I'm more bullish on the Rams probably than either of the other two, because of this reason. Number one, I think their offensive line needs to get healthy. They've got this week against Carolina, and they've got a bye week coming up. And I think that bye week is well timed for them as well, because we've seen Sean McVay reinvent an offense on a fly. And I think there's a chance that he might be able to do that here. And we've kind of started to see that a little bit. Like, he started to realize he needs more team speed. And all of a sudden, since he doesn't have Van Jefferson, he's been throwing Tutu Atwell in there. Because Allen Robinson ain't it. That's just not happening. If you have him, drop him. I don't care. But Skoranek definitely can have a role. Tutu Atwell can have a role until Van Jefferson gets back. Hopefully Van Jefferson gets back. But I'm a believer that he might be able to work something with that offense. The running backs, I'm staying far away from them, but they have to do something more than Cooper Kupp, and I think that they'll get there.
And I wonder if we see some Kyron Williams at some point, just because of the
exactly.
lack of success. So
yep.
there'll be something. We talked about maybe they could add another back somehow, but you're right. McVay is certainly the offensive mind that you have the most confidence of those guys, which is not really that hard. I'd rather have Bip or Billy running an NFL offense than anything we're seeing in Denver right now. No doubt in my mind. Want to talk about a fun game here. Kansas City plays Buffalo this weekend in an AFC title rematch from the from the AFC playoff game Classic, where we saw Kansas City win and then go on to lose to the Bengals. What are your expectations for this game? We'll first go around the horn. Who wins this one? Billy.
Who wins this one? I think Buffalo wins. I think Buffalo is just right now clearly ahead. I think what beat them last year was Tyreek Hill. His speed just destroyed them. It destroyed them on that one touchdown, the second to last touchdown, and then they backed off completely. That Kelsey catch, the 18 yards. I think they win the game. I got this feeling it's going to be an under, though, only because there's going to be so much hype around this game. And I think both teams are going to try to keep the ball as long as possible from the other team. And I just think it's going to be slow, sustained, and I think they're going to score. But then it might turn into just a pinball game, which we all want to see. We would love to see a 45-44 game, of course.
Give me 48-45.
Absolutely.
I would love that.
We all would want that. But, I think it'll be a little slower pace than people want, but I still think it's going to be a great game. And I go with Buffalo. I think they're going to be pissed off. They're going to go in there. Their offense is just so unbelievable right now. They go.
Bip, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very good game, whether high scoring or not. I feel the quarterback that will have the ball last is going to win that game. I know Buffalo is going to come with a chip on their shoulder and what happened and desperate to prove they are the better team. But, I also don't like betting against Patrick Mahomes and what he can do, right? And of course, Andy Reid. So I just feel that whichever quarterback has the ball last is going to win the game. And then, my hope is that Gabe Davis scores another 5, right? That will make me very fantasy happy.
No doubt about that. Dan, who wins?
Yeah, I'm with Bill. I think he phrased it perfectly. Whichever quarterback has the ball last is going to win. I mean, if you're not salivating over this game, there's something wrong with you. You shouldn't even be playing fantasy football. And I think Gabe Davis is going to have a lot to say about the winner too. I mean, I think if Gabe has a quiet game, this probably could roll the Chiefs' way. If Gabe is doing what he did against the Steelers, it could be a tough day for Kansas City.
JD, who wins?
Yeah, I think coming off of a shorter week, off of the game we saw last night, I'm surprised it's only 3. With the points. If anything, I think the line probably moves more towards Buffalo. So if you are on KC, maybe you wait if you do think it's a field goal situation. But I think Buffalo wins this game. But like you said, it's hard to bet against Mahomes. So agree with the last quarterback to hold the ball. But if I have to bet the line, it'll be Buffalo on this one.
So right now, Patrick Mahomes is 6 wins, 0 losses, and 1 push in his 7 games as an underdog in the NFL.
There you go.
Never lost you money as an underdog. So that's something to consider. Again, I think that ends this week. I think that the Bills cover, and I think that the Bills win by a touchdown or so. We saw Kansas City get challenged against Las Vegas last night. I think the Bills' offense will move the ball very well. There you go, ML. ML's thinking about like how I am.
That'd be good.
Nice 7 spot. Yeah, 7 spot. And now we'll get back to the fantasy players on these teams. Just go right around the horn again. Billy and Bip, your thoughts on Juju Smith-Schuster and Devin Singletary? 2 kind of interesting players in their starts to the season. Start with Billy on this one.
I have him on a few spots. In fact, I know the league that you, Theo, and Bip are in with me. I have Juju Smith-Schuster. He's just not doing anything for me right now. He's just like a 10-point guy who's, his yards per catch is so bad. I would much rather have MVS right now. I really would. And knowing he's going to drop 2 passes a game right in his hands, I'd still almost rather have him just because I think he gets looked at a little more. It seems like he's looked at a little more. Juju doesn't do anything for me. Devin Singletary does. I think if they can utilize him in the correct way and give him some goal line touches, let him. And I think he's going to get some this week. I think he's going to have a decent game against Kansas City. It's all about Josh Allen around the goal line too, of course. But I like Singletary going forward. I think he's going to start showing what he did at the end of the season last year.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was never into Juju going into this season. Probably took some to hedge. I liked that they were feeding MVS last night. And he did have a drop, but we didn't see the Green Bay MVS dropping a bunch of passes, right? So I just feel if Mahomes trusts him more, his role might evolve there. And then, I'm still very high on Sky Moore in second half of the year. So hopefully he will evolve, right? So I'm fading Juju. I think Buffalo, with what they have, I still feel Singletary is the best running back in Buffalo right now. And, he showed his pass catching abilities 2 games back and what he did. So with all the injuries to running backs and whatnot, he's still playing as an RB2 for me in a bunch of teams. So Singletary is the guy for me going forward.
Dan or JD, anything to add on Juju or Devin Singletary?
I mean, I'll throw out with Juju. I had some hopes for him going into the season, but at this point, basically, he's that guy I'm playing in leagues where I don't have a lot of depth and I do have injuries or bye weeks, and I don't feel great about it. Singletary, I think, expecting what he did weeks 3 and 4 is probably expecting too much. Expecting what he did the first couple weeks is probably expecting too little. I think he settles in somewhere in between.
I think you kind of nailed it, though, Dan. Just because when I'm looking at Devin Singletary, his 2 most fantasy impactful games and the 2 games where they leaned on him the most were these 23-20 game and the 21-19 game. So I think, like, in a game against Kansas City, I would expect Singletary to be very fantasy viable. In these very competitive games, I think you'll see a lot of Singletary, but they are not going to run him into the ground if they're up 38-3. They're going to use James Cook. We've seen them use Zach Moss. in blowouts, I think, and the problem is the Bills are going to have a few more blowouts this year. So that's the one problem with Singletary, where he's more of I feel more comfortable if it was my flex than my RB2. But the nature of the running back game, he's my RB2 wherever I have him. So,
the thing is with Singletary, he's shown it to you. He was RB4 already. He's with 9 receptions. You want to tie your running backs to good offense. This time of year, you want as many running backs as you can. So if you've got him on one of the top offenses, that's way more valuable to me than a Juju that's replaceable. What did he do? Give you 13 points at best? You can find that on the waiver wire, in most of your leagues, especially FFPC, how slim the leagues are. So I think the running back here is definitely more of value to me.
Quick around the horn. Who would you rather roster the rest of the season, Juju Smith-Schuster or Alec Pierce? Start with Billy.
Alec Pierce, 100%.
Bip.
Pierce, my highest owned player.
Nice flex, Bip.
Pierce, not my highest owned player, but if I had him, I would start him.
Yeah, rookies. We talked about it before we came on air. You want rookies this time of year. The ones that pop, the ones that didn't pop, the ones in good offenses especially. So give me the rookie receiver. I know he's not in a great offense, and maybe he's got Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan's got a crush on him, and that's all you need is for the quarterback to have a crush on you to get targets. Give me
Pierce. Pierce is a baller. Shout out to 1912. What are our thoughts on Rashad Bateman right now? If you were in a dynasty, I'm assuming this is dynasty. Is he a buy, sell, or hold for you in terms of dynasty? Start with Billy.
Not really a dynasty player, but I'd probably say I don't know if I'd go for a buy on him. He's more of a hold for me. I don't think I'd do anything with him right now. He's had a couple good games, he had a couple duds. Just kind of hang on to see what he's got and see where that offense goes. But that'd be my opinion.
Bip.
I agree. I'm not paying a 2023 first for Bateman, but I'm going to hold him where I have him and try to buy him cheap. I still like him. I still feel they will figure out his role as that offense evolves, but I'm not overpaying to buy him.
Shout out to Joe Carlton in the chat. Joe's doing very, very well in the NFFC Silver Bullet right now. He took care of business against me this week in our Bullet League, so hat tip to you, Joe.
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to Joe as well, because he left us a nice comment earlier today about our guests and just listening to the show. I made a comment about grabbing a pen and paper, and he flexed his experience, and we love that. We want this to be a community. We want everyone to share ideas. We bring on these guests because we know they're the best and we want them to help you guys, but we know you guys can help us too, man. So don't be afraid to drop comments, whether you're listening now or drop them in the comments below if you're listening later. But we're all here to share and win together.
Yeah, and we like to say in the GOAT District, there's no other podcast right now that has as many very good high stakes players who listen in and watch as well as come on the show. So we're proud of our not only our knowledgeable guests, but our knowledgeable listeners and viewers. We have some of the sharpest people around that I think listen to the GOAT District and watch the GOAT District. So hat tip to everybody there. Want to get back to Buffalo and Kansas City. Pick one stash for the rest of the season. Isaiah Pacheco, Sky Moore, Khalil Shakir, who popped this weekend, and James Cook. If you could have one of those guys for the rest of the season, which one would it be? Start with Billy.
I am going to, and I think I know what Bip's going to say just based on some things he said. I'm going to go with Sky Moore as well. I have a lot of him stashed away for right now. I think he's got the best chance for anything. I think Shakir's just a guy who's going to be only viable if McKenzie's out. The Kansas City running backs rotation is just all over the place. You just don't know each week who's going to get the run of the work. So, and James Cook is kind of a guy who's not getting on the field unless they're in a blowout. So definitely Sky Moore for me.
Bip, we know your answer. Sky Moore's your guy. Anything further to add on him?
Yeah, no, I think he has the highest ceiling this year, I would say, to win a tournament out of all the 4 guys that you talked about. I mean, I love all 4 of them. I think Shakir will have a role, but I just don't see him being weekly consistent, with Gabe Davis and Diggs ahead of him. I love Pacheco. I still feel, his role might evolve, or if Clyde goes down and McKinnon, right, he just can't be consistent. But how they run that offense, running backs may not get a lot of touches consistently. So more from an upside standpoint.
Dan?
Yeah, I'd rather roster McKinnon than Pacheco in redraft for sure. And as far as the guys we're talking about, Sky Moore definitely. Though I will say, if there's like if Gabe Davis or Isaiah McKenzie goes down for a long time, I think Shakir could be that guy.
Yep.
JD, who you want?
Yeah, there's just more in front of Shakir for it to happen. Sky Moore, you got to think, because we haven't seen anyone really pull away in that KC offense. Yes. We want Mahomes, the $100 million man, to fall in love with someone. And I mean, this is the time of year, guys, where love is in the air. The rookie receivers come in prancing. We saw Alec Pierce a couple weeks ago getting Ryan's attention. I think that there's just a matter of time before Sky Moore. I will say, though, Pacheco, the eye test, he did look good. And I'm not a CEH guy. So I think if there's an opportunity, I could see Pacheco taking that over. And I like James Cook, again, just more injury-wise with the opportunity in Buffalo.
So I'll take the bullish case on Khalil Shakir. For one, I already saw it last week. I think that he looks excellent. Like, for me, he looks better than Isaiah McKenzie. He's explosive. They had one conversion where it was fantastic, and then he had the touchdown where he was impressive on. And I will say this, Gabe Davis has missed a game. Isaiah McKenzie has missed 2 games. Dawson Knox has missed a game. So we've already seen the Buffalo receiving core miss games. Once you miss a game, your chances of missing another game go up. So like Dan said, if Shakir has a path where he's going to be like he was this past weekend, he's extremely viable in the formats we play in. So I'm going to take Shakir. Want to move on to some players, or we have one more offense. There's 3 offenses that are somewhat middling. We'll call these the stacking offenses: Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, and Arizona. These teams were heavily stacked. These teams were attacked in the draft season, and it's been like a lot of stuff left on the vine here. All 3 average around that 20 points per game mark. They've had a couple of real duds as well. Which offense are you most bullish on rest of the season? Starting with Billy.
Oh, I mean, they all have their moments. I think Tampa's got the most pieces in place. I think that offensive line is a little shaky, and that's why they're stumbling a little bit. I guess if I had to pick one, I think I'd go with them just because of Brady. Cincinnati's offensive line is not what we thought it was right now, and I want to say Arizona because I got a ton of Kyler. I'd love to see that happen, and when Hopkins comes back. But if I had to pick one, I really think Tampa could have the best offense. But then now, as I'm thinking about this more, I may just lean towards Arizona because the defense is much lousier, which causes their offense to be on the field more and stuff. So, Arizona. I'm gonna switch my answer.
Bip.
Yeah, I hope it is, my heart wants it to be Cincinnati. I'm very invested in, their receiving corps, and Burrow is one of my higher owned quarterbacks, right? But the way this new offensive line is playing, I'm just not hopeful if last year's magic happens and teams are paying extra attention to Jamar Chase, right? So I think he probably has a bit more value when Higgins is on the field versus, Higgins not being on the field. So, from that standpoint, like Billy was saying, and we saw it last year, right? Tampa Bay, the receivers are getting healthy. Brady is the GOAT, and then their running game is going, and I'm happy to see Rashad White's role expand in that offense, right? So prudently, I think it will be Tampa Bay. I'm off Arizona. I think Kyler will be the master of garbage time, and he'll put up points in fourth quarter, which he did even last year. But I think Tampa Bay probably figures it out first. But I really, really want it to be Cincinnati. That'll make me happy.
Dan, which one are you most bullish on?
I hate Bip for saying all of that. I have too much. Arizona. Damn you, Bip.
Arizona right now, last in yards per completion in the entire league with 8.3.
Hey, maybe DeAndre Hopkins.
You got to think they're looking forward for DeAndre to
I'm
get back.
so fearful that DeAndre Hopkins is going to just turn into such a dud.
He ate potato chips on his couch.
That's my own Schadenfreude talking. So
he'll be better. He'll be better than AJ Green, though. I mean, you got to be a little happy about that.
No doubt about that. I mean, to be honest, I'm heavily invested in all of these offenses, so I hope the answer is C, all of the above. If I had to pick one, though, I'm going with Billy. I think it's Tampa Bay. I think they are probably the one that has the most chance of putting everything together. So,
I'm gonna take Arizona. I do think that when Hopkins comes back, it's going to elevate the offense. It's going to help Kyler. They just got Rondell Moore back, and Rondell Moore looks pretty good to me. We haven't seen him break off a big play, but he looks good. He looks kind of like what we expected when he came into the league in terms of being able to get open in the slot. So I think once you have Hopkins and Brown and Moore, I'm going to take kind of a bullish approach with Arizona. Anything, JD, on a team which team you like the most?
No, I mean, I'm like you guys, wishful thinking on Cincinnati. I will say we have seen offensive lines, they've tried to make improvements. We have seen that take a bit of time. We've seen Cincinnati play with a horrible offensive line and make it work. So you hope that as the season goes, I don't know what happened to Higgins last week. I don't know if everyone's seen him yet. Tell him to call home because they're still looking for him. But I mean, that hurt me, and I'm sure a lot of people. He's one of my own players. Tampa with Brady there, you got to think, you can never. It's kind of like we talked about Mahomes earlier. You're not betting against Brady. You got to think they're gonna have control of that situation moving forward. But Arizona, like I said, I don't know. It all depends when Hopkins come back, like Dan said, how he fits in and if he's back to where we expect him.
I mean, I have a mini rant. Okay,
go for it.
I had a team, my primetime team. I had 146 points with T. Higgins and Darren Waller still to go, and I also played Rashad Penny. Guess how many points I ended up with? 146.
Ugh. That's gross. That's gross, man.
Horrible.
I was on the fence with this Tampa and Arizona thing, and then I just remembered two words: Cliff Kingsbury. So I'm going to go with Tampa.
So now I'm on an island. I'm on an island here, guys.
Because
I'm
Theo, I want to be with you so bad because I have some of them, and I really think they can get that offense rolling. But then I look at him on the sidelines, and I'm like, oh, it's like he's just a step below Nathaniel Hackett in my mind. He's not. He's right in the Matt Nagy area. So
Kyler is so done with him. I mean, did you see his comments after the last game? They're asking, well, Kyler, you only ran 4 times. And he goes, I just run the plays they give to me.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like Kingsbury might be competing with Matt Rule for a couple of those college jobs.
I think he might be. I hope he is.
I sure do. And I'd much rather have Matt Rule if I'm a college program. I'd like to add that as well.
Yes.
Want to get to some players here, guys. 2 of the biggest fantasy surprises so far are Josh Jacobs and Miles Sanders. Both find themselves as RB1s 5 weeks into the season. We saw Josh Jacobs absolutely ball out last night as well. I'll add that. Are there any lessons learned here with where these guys were drafted, with the mistakes that were made allowing them to slide to that level? And then also, do you think they keep this up and finish as RB1s? Start with Billy on this.
I hope they don't, because I barely have either one of them. In fact, I have no Jacobs at all, and I have very little Miles Sanders. I was off Jacobs for the simple reason of adding. I felt like most of his value last year was in the fact that he and Renfrow were the only targets for the majority of the year, and he wasn't going to get a lot of catches. So I don't have a lot of him. He looks great. He looked phenomenal last night. Sanders is kind of still wishy-washy to me. He kind of, I think he's hit or miss every week. Is there a lesson to be learned? Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe just pile up on more running backs if you go wide receiver heavy at the beginning, because some of these dead zone running backs are really paying off for people right now.
Michael Edelman approach to drafting works pretty well when you get to Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb with some awesome wide receivers, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Bip, your thoughts on these guys?
Well, I think three things I would say is maybe this is the year a zero RB wins the championship, right? With guys like this evolving later, right? So that's something interesting. But I think both are contract years, and it probably reflects on the energy and the passion and the effort with which they are playing. The other thing, I keep reminding myself every year is staying away from the off-season narratives, right? And then how Josh Jacobs was getting trashed because he started the Hall of Fame game, right? Just staying away from it. I mean, we all want to, but we forget. But I think those are things that drove down the prices. And I do agree with Billy. I still feel Jacobs without injury has a path to finishing top 12 RB. Sanders, I don't think he will finish. And the kind of offense they run, and then, Hurts will score those rushing touchdowns in the goal line. So I don't think Sanders will finish as a top 12 RB, but it's good to see him play well.
Dan?
I want to know where Joe Carlton was during July and August, because I definitely needed him. He's saying the evidence is there. McDaniels is going to run Josh Jacobs into the ground. Josh Jacobs, I will freely acknowledge I have 0.0 Josh Jacobs in any of my managed leagues, and I extremely regret that. I always find a reason to fade that guy, and he always finds a way to just like make me feel like dirt when I do it. So next year I'm just drafting all the Josh Jacobs. That's all there is to it. Miles Sanders, I think, is going to be a little bit more iffy, but yeah, he's on a great offense. He's their number one running back. So those are the kind of players you want to have.
JD, what do you think of those guys the rest of the season? Do you think they finish as RB1s?
I just think it comes back to we don't know shit, guys. We talked about it with the first and fifth guys. We talk about it with most of our guests who come on here, and especially these running backs in above average offenses, including Jacobs, that had no injury coming into it's not like an injury, like you said, it was just off-season narrative about what Jacobs would be in this offense. Oh, they're not going to re-sign him. They're going to get rid of him. Zamir White, as much as I love Zamir White coming in, why would they not use Jacobs the way they're using him? And when has he given us reason to think he's not going to do this with this opportunity, right? So I just think that, and I'm not saying I've got tons of either guy. I've got a bit, but it's not enough. I wish I had a lot more. I just think that it comes back to you can't go into to any narrative and be 100% sure or on one side or the other. You got to leave room for wiggle room and play percentages, and not completely say I'm not drafting a guy. Let cost, ADP, all that kind of stuff play a factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said with value-based drafting in a sense where they fall to a certain level and you just take them. But I think that the one lesson that I think the big takeaway is in terms of Josh Jacobs is when we saw him in the Hall of Fame game, I think that made people think less of him for the season. I think that certain coaches approach the preseason differently, and every year we see that. Mike Tomlin played Najee Harris, with a hurt foot in the preseason. So I think that we need to kind of throw any preseason narrative kind of out of there when it comes to how often we see guys. That's my takeaway. And then Sanders I have more of than Jacobs. It's kind of like the begrudgingly take him guy for me, where we get to a point and I'd say, oh shit, I'll just take Miles Sanders. Yeah. I'm really happy I have him. I think that I'm a little more bullish on Sanders though, because the offense is so good and he's averaging over 5 yards a carry. So I think he'll have a couple of big games just based on being around those guys. On the flip side of these nice stories, we're seeing some disastrous scoring from Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, and James Conner. All are at about 10 points per game right now. Who would you like to roster the most of all three moving forward through the year? And then add if you have any thoughts on lessons learned from these guys. Billy, who would you like to have of those three, if you could pick one?
I have very little of all of them. I have more Etienne than I do. I have zero Harris, Najee Harris. Believe it or not, I'm a Steeler fan, but I still have zero Harris this year. I didn't like it. I didn't like the whole situation with him. Very little James Conner. I definitely would Etienne just because I think the upside's there a little bit with he can catch the ball. I mean, the other two can as well, but Conner he just seems like he can't stay healthy. Every week he's getting nicked up. Najee's just struggling. That offense is just struggling right now. Pittsburgh is. especially with that defense. And then, but definitely ETN would be the guy that I would want to have the rest of the year, because I think he's shown even this past week, a little more flash, and he's going to erupt one of these games. He's going to have one of those few catches. He's going to have like a 6 for, he's going to have like a 6 for 100 catching, receiving, and he's going to have 2 touchdowns and 60 yards on the ground or something like that. So I would definitely go with ETN out of that group.
Bip?
Yeah, I would also go ETN. And, the other day I was looking at some stats, I think on Fantasy Pros, about strength of schedule and what it looks like. I think they rate the running back strength of schedule Jaguars as the best schedule way forward, right? But I think if you look at those 3 guys, Najee Harris came to the season with injury, and now with Pickett starting, and maybe this is the first year Mike Tomlin has more losses than wins, when the season ends. I just feel that's going to happen. So ETN is the one, I think, who has the highest ceiling right now based on what we are seeing. I was high on Harris at the beginning of the season, but when we heard about his foot injury, I just stopped drafting him. So it's played out well because I moderately have him, not a ton. But the only concern with ETN for me would be Doug Peterson. He goes by committee, he schemes games differently, and never, I've seen even in his Eagles days, consistently give touches to a single running back. So that's the only issue I could see. But ETN finally broke out, last game, and I expect to see him have a better second half.
Dan, who would you like to have the most of those 3?
Yeah, I think it's definitely ETN. Similar to Billy, I have no Najee. Just didn't like the situation at all. ETN, we got to remember, this is really his rookie year. And Connor, I didn't draft him heavily in redraft, but I held on to my dynasty shares, and I'm kind of regretting that. I mean, it's not setting up as well for Connor as it did last year. I mean, I didn't expect him to do the same thing as last year, where he had just incredible touchdown luck. But Arizona is just not scoring nearly enough to get him the opportunities he needs to be an RB1. So, I guess I would rank him ETN, Connor, and then Najee very clearly in the rear.
JD, which one?
Yeah, Etienne's almost at 5 yard per carry. The other 2 are under 3.7. Harris even at 3.2, and it doesn't look like there's a light at the end of the tunnel for Harris out there in Pittsburgh right now. So I think he still holds enough of that name value where you could probably move him and get something decent for him. But Etienne is definitely the guy I want to hold on to. Dan nailed it for me. He's, we saw Cook. We've seen guys coming off of injured seasons and then, start a little slow, but then build up momentum. We just look at JT last year, as a rookie, and how it took him a while to come back, and Etienne's coming off of injury. So we got to give him time. And I think he's definitely the one with the most upside here.
So I have one Najee Harris share. It was in the New York City primetime, the Saturday one, and it was like the 3rd draft I had of the day, and Najee Harris fell to me at the 302, so I had to take him.
I remember that.
It was the weirdest. It was the weirdest. It was the weirdest.
Rewind a second, just please rewind. You meant 202, right?
No. It was the weirdest board you've ever seen, and he fell to me at the 302. It was Tommy Libretti was in that draft, Nelson Sousa was in that draft, Michael Edelman was in that draft, and then there was a couple of guys who were kind of new to the room.
Mike
were you
Sanda
in that
and I were in that draft too.
Oh yes, you and Mike Sanda got George Kittle in like the 9th round.
And
eighth round.
Terrible. He stinks. So
yeah. So what
is going on with this draft? Can we post a board of this?
I'll send you the board. It was a wacky draft.
Oh my God! Why are we not in this draft?
But the moral of the story is you get Najee Harris at the 302, and it still brings your team down this year. So
right.
It's ETN. It's clearly ETN for me. I think that a lot of the narratives about ETN are going to change pretty quickly, and I'm happy to see that because I have a ton of them. Hopefully my teams can, have treaded water long enough to, see the ETN breakout through. But he certainly looks the part. And I think we've seen the best NFL season Najee Harris had already happened. I don't see him having another season as good as he did as a rookie, and I think that's just kind of the way I'm looking at it. The wide receiver position has seen its fair share of disappointments. I'm going to throw out a few players. Tell me the guy you're most bullish for rest of the way. Brandon Cooks, DJ Moore. I don't even want to put him in there. Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Ayuk. Who are you most bullish on moving forward? And is there this seems like this was a wide receiver dead zone to me, Billy, in a sense. Is there any lessons you learned from some of the wide receiver failures this year? It just seems like there's more than a few of them in this range.
I mean, I obviously didn't learn lessons because I draft DJ Moore every year. Now and I still have hope that he's going to turn into something. I mean, he's had horrible quarterbacks for forever, and I still think he can, I think he had 12 this week, so he's trending upwards. He's in the double digits now. But he's the one I'd hope for the most. I mean, Elijah Moore is just killing me everywhere. And it's like, I know the minute I sit him, he's going to go for 25, 30 points. I just know it's going to happen. So DJ Moore is the one I'm hoping for. I think that could turn it around just based on what he's done in the past. Elijah Moore, they just don't seem like they can get him going. I'm not really in on Jeudy or Ayuk. I think they're definitely secondary options in offenses that really aren't sinking right now or passing very much. So I would have to go with DJ Moore.
Bip?
Yeah, I'm not overly excited about any of these guys, but building on what Billy said, my only hope is, because I also have a bunch of DJ Moore, and the lesson I learned is do not draft receivers who play with Baker Mayfield. That's the valuable lesson. But my only hope is Mayfield is now hurt and hopefully stays away, and then maybe Darnold comes back. I think Moore did fine with Darnold, so I don't care what Carolina does, but at least fantasy wise we may see some of the ceilings of Moore hit. I don't know what's wrong with Jeudy. I was excited. I thought finally he might be having his season, and I'm even wondering, is he just a bad player? He's dropping passes he should catch, and I still see the upside there with Russell Wilson and hopefully Hackett getting fired and they figure out the offense, but I just don't see Jeudy, playing to his potential or the hype he came with. So it'll still be Moore for me, and hopefully without Baker Mayfield. That'll make a lot of us happy.
Dan, pick your poison.
Really? Do we have to?
You could say none of the above if you don't have any bullet. You're not bullish on any of them.
I'm going to go with DJ Moore. Brandon Cooks, Davis Mills has been exposed. Elijah Moore is just dealing with a quarterback who's not good enough, and there's too many other targets there.
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy, if Russ Wilson figures out his crap, then maybe. Brandon Ayuk just isn't going to get enough targets. So that's where I'm at on those guys.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks, DJ Moore are the guys that have shown you multiple 1,000+ seasons. In my opinion, I like guys who have shown it. Maybe Mills ain't great out there in Houston, but they got to keep chucking the ball, and you hope they give them a new quarterback next season if you're in Dynasty. But you're hoping the same with DJ Moore, right? So Ayuk with Jimmy there. I mean, we've kind of seen what we have there. So that offense looks good. He's a part of it. I don't mind Ayuk, but I think Brandon Cooks or DJ Moore are probably the two guys I want first.
Yeah, and give me DJ Moore. I think he's the best pedigree of the guys, and I certainly have enough DJ Moore that I needed to turn around. So I'll bet on.
So let me ask you guys this really quick, just a quick Dynasty question. So DJ Moore pops right now, or gets a bit more momentum going with Darnold. Do you guys move him on that value hike, or do you kind of hold on and say, you know what, we're going to see even better next season?
Well, I just traded him in a 750 with Deontay Johnson for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I basically traded two perpetual wide receiver.
Now you're just bragging. Theo. Come on, that's rude, man. That's rude. We have guests.
Basically, I think that you can package DJ Moore with another player and get something better, because I think he's the kind of guy that he's never going to kind of get over the hump. We keep having hopes of him becoming this truly elite player, and I think that he's a wide receiver 2 kind of for many, many years. So wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, and that's what he is. So
Dan,
kinda where I'm at.
I gotta throw this one on. Sorry, Dan. I just had to get this one on.
No, I just had to give Jason his props for correctly using overhyped. So anybody who uses overhyped in the chat, they're probably going to get on the
Nice.
We're going to feature them. So yes, good use of the word overhyped.
Let's keep moving on here, just because we hit an hour 15. I don't want to get to the final questions before, so we've got a couple to get to before that. This is a general draft strategy question. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and to some extent Patrick Mahomes have been just a cheat code. Mahomes brought his stats up a little bit last night, but those four guys are a clear tier at the QB, at the top of the QB scoring right now. Do you anticipate seeing quarterbacks drafted earlier in high stakes drafts next year, Billy? Do you think that this is going to be like a market adjustment where we're seeing, like, I'm predicting more quarterbacks like that third round? All of these guys are going to be gone in the third round just based on what an advantage they were this year. Do you see a general strategy change?
I mean, so I played in the NFFC, and I don't even know what year this was. It's probably like 2009, 10, somewhere like that. And I remember the days when Brady, Rodgers, and Breeze all went in the first round. And they were worth it because they just gave you such a huge advantage. But, I want to say yes, Theo, that will happen, and it would be justified. I think, like, in the prime time that we're all in, and I know Bip took Josh Allen in the second, and that should have been my pick. I should have just taken him.
Post Thursday, though. Post Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But to answer your question, I don't think so. And I think the reason why is because we just get so engaged on hearing over and over and over, you can wait on quarterback, quarterback's deep. It really is not. There's always a select 4 or 5 that are there. And I think the lesson I learned this year is that fourth round was a disaster zone right now for receivers. And it was starting with like the Juju, Schuster, the Moonies, all those guys were a disaster zone. And just take the quarterback there. Just take it and be done with it and get the stud and then move on. So while I think that's the smart move, I do think they're going to get pushed down. And I think, it turns into a value game. It's like, we're like, oh, well, if I know I can get, this guy in the 5th, I'm going to wait till the 5th and that kind of thing. So I don't see them getting pushed up, although I think they should be.
Oh, sorry, Bip. Go ahead, buddy.
No, go ahead, JD.
Go ahead.
Okay. No, I think I am, I play more the FFPC and where, you get 4 points for a touchdown. But I think I definitely see that a market adjustment will happen, including myself. I'm probably going to grab an elite QB earlier than I've done because I've learned my lesson, waiting for a Burrow, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott. It's not taking me anywhere. And the frustrating part is I have these very good teams, but the QB is killing me, right? I would throw Deshaun Watson to that list next year, but I think I'm probably going to draft a QB a little earlier than I do and trust my drafting skills to build a roster around that QB.
Sorry, guys. I mean, I cut you off. But what I was going to say is, doesn't it change? You know how, like, we're doing these hero RBs or late RBs. So the RB2 position kind of gets filled in with the depth pieces, right, that you're getting later. So now maybe because, like you said, those wide receiver 2s in those 3-4 rounds are not as strong. And we're going to, next year be thinking about that. You'd think that it just makes sense to kind of bring in the quarterback, the tight end position, what's left, right? So you fill it in with studs at those positions. You've got your top 2 studs in a running back and a receiver, and then you can kind of RB2, wide receiver 2 with your depth now. So I do think, and we've talked about this, Theo, for weeks now, and you've asked this great question because I see it coming, man. I see these quarterbacks going a lot, not to the days where Michael Vick was going like 101. The Matthew Berry was promoting Vick as a 101, but I do think these guys move up a bit, especially the studs at the top.
Yeah, I think that's the way we're headed. And I think that, Billy brought up the 4th round. I think it's going to be the 3rd round. I think when we start drafting, in June, you're going to see, especially in NFFC, these guys are all going to be gone by the end of the 3rd round. And it might artificially push up a couple quarterbacks behind them, which is probably the group that you want to avoid.
Yeah.
Kind of treat it like tight end, where the truly elites will help you. And if you miss on those, don't try to turn, the okay players into elite players by pushing up the ADP. Amari Cooper is wide receiver 15 right now. He's averaging 15 points per game. To me, he looks like the 2022 version of last year's Brandon Cooks. These are two cases where the market discounted boring older wide receivers with clear paths to volume. Is there any lesson learned here? And do you think Amari Cooper keeps it up and finishes as a wide receiver 2? We'll start with Billy.
I do think he's going to maintain that because Brissett seems to focus on him, and then when they get Deshaun Watson back, that just adds to his value, in my opinion. The lesson here is we all want the new shiny toy, and we all want the fast guy. We just all want that. That's what we all want. So it's easy to avoid these guys, and sometimes we need to take a step back. Put Josh Jacobs into that group too. He's just boring, but sometimes boring can be a nice thing.
Tyler
to have
Lockett.
Tyler
Lockett.
Hey, A-Rob was supposed to be boring, and he's way too boring.
Yes, so that's true. But yeah, some of these guys, sometimes we look at them and we're like, oh gosh, this is just an ugly piece. There's no way this is going to happen. But when you need a running back or a receiver in a spot, they can fill in nicely for you. There's nothing wrong with getting 15 to 20 points a game from these guys. And so I think the lesson learned is maybe we don't go for the shiny toy all the time, and we actually kind of think about the volume, because volume is king, whether you're running back or receiver. So,
Yep.
Pip?
Yeah, I have an issue with Amari Cooper. It's nothing to do with what he does on the field, but he just vanishes for me when I need him in championships and past years. I've been a never Cooper. I still remember, funny anecdote. So a few years back, he sucked at Las Vegas, and I benched him on a Thursday night with Kansas City, and he goes off with 210 yards, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns, right? So that's been my story with Amari Cooper. But hey, I did get him in the 7th round of the main event, which you and Dan were on my table, at Las Vegas.
Yep.
And he's paying off well. He's an important piece of my team right now as a wide receiver 3. So I think this thing continues. I still feel he will burn you one of those games in the 3-week championship. That's been my history, but that's where I am with Amari Cooper.
Dan, does he finish as a wide receiver 2? And is there any lessons, anything you want to add to the sharp words that Billy and Bip have said?
Yeah, I mean, I echo pretty much everything Bip said. I was off him because he's gives you like a 25-point week, a 35-point week, and about 10 8-point weeks, and it's just really hard to deal with. But on the other hand, with Deshaun Watson going there, I was interested. But when it came down to the fact that it was going to be Brissett for 12 weeks, I just didn't think Brissett was going to be that functional a quarterback. Yeah. He has proven to be way more functional than I expected. So, my bad on that. I wish I had a little bit more of him. JD and I do have him in a dynasty league.
I was hoping you would mention that I chose not to.
We have learned our lesson that we're no longer starting Brandon Cooks over Amari Cooper. I did not push back on that. So I cannot blame JD. It was a mutual decision, and Cooper over Brandon Cooks for sure.
I'm going to say he absolutely finishes as a wide receiver 2, also mainly because I'm in a league with Billy and Pip, and I have Amari Cooper in a prime time there, so I want to see him smash. But we've reached the part of the show where this is what we all came for. This is why people paid JD so much money on the Patreon this morning to get access to watch the live view of this. We're going to rank our top 5 at each position. No cop-outs here, guys. You have to give me 5 names. You can't make wide receiver 5 be like 12 guys. I'm
copping out because I spent 6 hours on the road with my trailer and I never had time to look at this. So I will recuse myself from this discussion.
Okay, all right. We'll do it four-handed. And
that sounds like Dan's going first.
anything he disagrees with, he can just kind of make fun of, I guess. So we'll start at the quarterback spot. We'll start with Billy, and we'll go around the horn. Give me your top 5 quarterbacks in terms of Who finishes top 5 in scoring at the quarterback position?
Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Lamar, and I'm going to put Kyler in there at 5 because I'm going to hope that Hopkins coming back, letting him run a little more, get some of that junkyard at the end of the games. That's going to be my thing. So Kyler's going to be my 5.
Thank you for giving me hope, Billy.
Don't
Go ahead.
Yeah, my top 5 are Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Herbert. I think Herbert will have a good second half.
JD, top 5.
Allen, Jackson, Mahomes, Hurts.
One name.
Give me Herbert, man. I hopefully he's just affected by injury and smashes the back end of this season.
I will go Allen, Jackson, Hurts, Mahomes, and I'm also going to go Kyler Murray. He's up there right now. As bad as it seems, he's still high up in the quarterback scoring, and he gets Hopkins back. Let's keep it at Dan. You don't want to do your quarterback, so we're going to really skip you on this one.
Yeah, we're really skipping. I mean, you guys nailed the top 4. I mean, the top 4 were the same for all 4 of you guys, and it was just whether it was, is it Herbert or is it Murray? So yeah, I'll pick Murray just because I have more Murray than I have Herbert.
Talking into existence, Dan. Okay, right. So we'll go with another difficult position because I think it's easy to get to 4, at least for me. Let's go wide receivers. Give me your top 5 wide receivers here, Billy, as we end the season.
So I think the first 3 are pretty obvious. It's Kupp, Jefferson, and Diggs in whatever order you want to have them. I think the next 2 are a little dicier. I want to say Chase, so I'm going to put him at 4. And then I am going to go with ARSB at 5. I think if he comes back after the bye, that ankle thing with that offense, I really believe he could be there.
Bip.
Yep, I have Kupp, Jefferson, Diggs, and then I actually have ARSB as my 4 based on what I've seen, and my 5 would be Adams over Chase based on what I've seen.
JD.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I do anything different. I mean, Hill with Tua's injury, and I mean, he's probably in the top 6-ish.
Give me your 5, JD. It's going to be 5 guys.
Yeah, I mean, the top 3 are going to be the same for all of us. I'd probably go Adams next, and then throw Chase in there.
Dan, do you want to go wide receivers?
Just for the sake of it, yeah, the same top 3. I'll go Adams and ARSB.
And I'm going to go with the same top 3, Kupp, Diggs, Jefferson. I'm going to say Tyreek Hill, and I'm assuming that he gets back from the foot injury. And then I will say Devontae Adams stays in there. Chase does not finish in the top 5, and ARSB does not either. Let's go with the tight end position. Start with Billy.
Obviously, Andrews, Kelsey, you can kind of flip-flop those guys ever you want, 1A, 1B. So it's 1, 2. So I write Andrews, Kelsey. Goddard. Based on his volume right now, I'm going to go with Higbee at 4. And I really want to put Pitts in there, but I just can't. I can't do it right now. So I'm going to go with this is going to be a surprise probably, but I am going to go with David Njoku. I think he's getting enough targets in that offense, and if Cooper's struggling with Watson back, I think he could be there. The tight end position is a complete mess right now. I never thought I would ever say that top 5, but I really think he's got a shot.
It's definitely awful right now. Bip.
Yep, I have the same top 4: Kelsey, Andrews, Goddard, and Higbee, and I will actually throw in Kyle Pitts as 5. I just can't give up on his talent, and with Drake London a bit hurt, I expect them to figure out how to get him the ball in the second half of the season.
JD, your top 5.
I'm trying to see if I could fit Kittle in here somehow, man. It's so ugly for Kittle.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that.
It's ugly. Like, does he have any chance? Does he have any chance?
No,
is it just
that ship is sailed.
You can't catch the ball when you're blocking every play.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So Kelsey for sure. Andrews, Goddard, and then Pitts. I'll throw TJ Hawk in there. He's I mean, for him to, I know there's guys that weren't there, but we're going to see injuries and just the fact that anytime I see that game week winning game from a young player like that in an offense that's ascending, I like what you can play with the rest of the season.
I will go with Kelsey, Andrews, Goddard, Higbee, and then I'll go a little further down the list. I'll go Pat Freiermuth having a good end of the season. And
There's the shocker of the season.
No, in all seriousness, no. I will say Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts comes back and does enough to get it to tight end 5. Tight end 5 is going to be a significant tier break too.
Yes,
right now
I'm going to throw in my top 5 here, Theo.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, Kelsey, Andrews, Higbee. I'll put in Ertz, barely over Goddard, and just because I want to see the world burn, I'm throwing in Taysom Hill.
And that's just awful.
Where's Cole Kmet? Where's Cole Kmet at? Come on.
No.
Hey,
Taysom Hill is.
Taysom Hill is fantasy takes exposed. Yeah, they're coming after me.
And I will say, you were not alone with Cole Kmet this summer. There was a lot of very sharp money on Mr. Kmet. Yep. So it's very disappointing. And nothing good in Chicago. I'm glad we didn't have to talk about them tonight. And then right now we got to do the running back position. We'll start with Billy on this. You know what? Billy's had to go first every single time.
Yeah.
We'll start with Bip on this one.
All right. Running backs, I have Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Eckler. I will throw in Chubb at 4, and then Jonathan Taylor at 5. No Derrick Henry in my top 5.
I'll go next because JD looks like he's trying to think about who his RB5 is going to be. I will take Saquon Barkley finishing as RB1 overall. Eckler, Chubb. I'll go Christian McCaffrey, and my RB5 will be Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall is going to grow. I mean, he's close right now. He's RB9, and I think that last game, Michael Carter poached 2 goal line touchdowns from him. Those are going to be his going forward. He's the offense. He's legit, and he's catching the ball. He's a top 5 running back for me this year. Go ahead, JD.
Yeah, Barkley, CMC, Chubb, Henry, Eckler.
Mr. Billy WASOSKY. Who you got?
Pretty much the same. Saquon, McCaffrey. I'm going to go Chubb. I would never have said that earlier in the season, but I can't.
I know, right?
Eckler, and then I also have Breece Hall. He was my 5.
That is a good one.
That playoff schedule is fantastic. So he's a guy who could really pay dividends in the playoffs.
Want to get talking about league winners here. Which players do you think will lead fantasy managers to over that 3-week playoff run and cash big prizes? This is a very difficult question. But is there who are the players that you see as the true, league winners, guys who are going to run the gauntlet towards the end of the season? Billy, start with this one.
So I think they got to be some obscure guys. We want to just name the obvious. I mean, right now, every stack I'm seeing, I'm seeing the Burrow Chase thing from last year, and all I can see is Josh Allen and Diggs, and Kelsey and Mahomes. That's what I see when I see that. A couple guys I think that could go under the radar. I mean, I think Breece Hall is definitely one of them. He could definitely be one, but I would not be shocked to see Eno Benjamin put a little dent in things at the last 3 weeks of the season because James Conner, I just think he'll be nicked up by then, and Eno will get his chance and catches balls, gets a couple end zone touches, that kind of thing. And whoever is running the ball in San Francisco, whoever that is, because we know that's just a decent play as well. Those would be the 2 running backs. Receivers is a little tougher, and I'm just going to tie myself to 2 good offenses. We've talked about Sky Moore. He's one of them. And then whether it's Isaiah McKenzie or Khalil Shakir, I think those could be some guys that can really pop. I'm going off the page here. I'm not staying with the standard, first and second round guys.
No, I like you going deep on that one, and it kind of ties everything together. Bip, who are some guys that you could see just being absolutely saviors for fantasy football teams down the stretch here?
Yeah, I mean, there's some nice. I mean, I would say definitely any of the top fives we have ranked across, just now. I think we'll see many of those names this year in the fantasy championship rosters. Some players I would throw out. I think high variance players. We cannot forget AJ Brown. I think AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, one of those could light it up during the playoffs. So something to look out for. The other deep player, there are two other deep players that we have not talked about that I think could be differentiators is Donovan Peoples-Jones with Deshaun Watson coming back. Catching some of those Will Fuller type deep balls could be a difference maker for a championship team. And then I would also throw out, another player I like. I know Giants don't look good, but Wan'Dale Robinson, they drafted him this year. They like his talent. I think he gets healthy and probably lights it up. And we've also talked about the potential of Jameson Williams. So those are some additional names I'll throw out there, other than.
Love the Wan'Dale. My portfolio loves that. One of my most owned. Theo, I'm going ahead of Dan because I know he's going to steal my guy. I don't know if you guys all got the memo, but it's Ramondre season this weekend with Harris injured. Let me throw out some numbers here. Number 1 in juke rate, number 2 in evaded tackles, number 10 in true yards per carry, number 7 in yards created. This guy has big play breakaway runs, number 8. He's got big play written all over him. He's going to be manning the offense. He's already given us close to 20 points in 3 weeks this season. I think that he could, just come in there and establish himself as a nice fantasy piece to win you your leagues moving forward.
So I'll stick with a couple of the high pedigree guys. I think it's Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. I think that this is their year. The playoff schedule, they play Cincinnati, I believe, in week 18, where this past week was a lower scoring game, but we did see last year Cincinnati have a high scoring line against Baltimore. I think as we get towards the end of the season, that Cincinnati-Baltimore game could be a little higher scoring. I think that game could push people over the top. I will say Breece Hall, I could see him being just unstoppable during the playoff weeks. And then I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson as well. I think that we're seeing just true greatness out there, and I think he solidifies himself as the number 1 pick in every single fantasy football draft as we go down the stretch here. In terms of like deep guys, I'm interested to see what happens with Romeo Doubs, because I think his role could grow as the season moves along, and I think he could be an impactful guy down the stretch as well. Dan, is there anybody who you're looking at as a potential league winner?
I mean, I'm still the same place I was at the beginning of the season, which is Saquon all the way. Imagine if that guy actually gets some help on offense. Every defender is not keying on Saquon Barkley. I mean, you look at some of his runs, and it's just like everybody knows the run is coming, and Saquon still gets 6-7 yards, or sometimes 20 yards. I think he's by far the most likely of the running backs to be, the number 1. I'll take Tyler Lockett at wide receiver. I think it's just going to keep going. Geno Smith is dropping dimes, and Tyler Lockett is catching them, and and the rest of us are just watching.
Love it. That just about does it. We're at an hour 38 here, JD.
Yeah, guys, I don't know about you. This was a loaded show. Before we say goodbye to the guests, real quick, we did not give enough love to our partners, the FFPC, a big part of why we're here. They've got a weekly challenge going on right now, $35, $200, 2 different entries. Win some money weekly, guys. If your teams are down and out, don't give up, first of all, because it's not deep enough to give up. But add a little spice to your week. Go to myffpc.com. Even better, there's a link below in the comments, and you can get a direct link as well as an exclusive bonus to the FFPC. Underdog, use the code DISTRICT. If you're not signed up, you got prop bets on the weekly over-unders. You got drafts for DFS styles. Go check it out. Use the code DISTRICT. Get up to $100. And I want to say, guys in the chat, you guys have been awesome tonight, and we appreciate and love all of you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe, leave some comments below. That definitely helps us, helps the show, in that whole equation or whatever they call that thing, the algorithm out there in fantasy land. Theo, why don't you tell the peeps what we have coming up and then walk our guests out proper before we close this thing out?
So Thursday, I will be doing a daytime show with Mike Leone of Established the Run, a press coverage one that should be fun. And then we have one of our a recurring guest at this point, Jared Smola of Draft Sharks, will be joining us for our tailgate on Thursday evening. So that should be a lot of fun. We're loaded next week as well. I think we're bringing on the best guests, and we're putting out some tremendous content. And I'm really glad that Bip and Billy could really add to that. I thought this was awesome tonight. Bip and Billy, best of luck in your waiver wire this week, and also how your teams finish this season. We'll love to have you guys back on sometime soon.
Appreciate it. Had a great time.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
Guys.
Good night.
Yeah,
Thanks for.
Billy and Bep are two of the best. I mean, just absolutely. Anytime you're looking at any sort of league anywhere, you're seeing Billy and Bep at the top. I mean, it's just disgusting. It's hard to deal with. So appreciate you guys coming on. What you share with us is just fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Tune in on Thursday, guys, for Thursday night tailgate. We'll check you all. We do have one, right, Theo, this week?
We have two on Thursday.
We have two on Thursday, even better.
Mike Leone and then Jared Smola. We are double tapping Thursday.
Double dipping.
Hey, listen, when the Chicago Bears play the Washington Commanders, the GOAT District brings you two podcasts.
Oh man.
That will be more.
There's something good coming on Thursday. You know that much.
Yes.
The number of podcasts might exceed the number of touchdowns in that game.
Oh
Yes.
wow.
Skip the game. Skip the game. You can watch the condensed version the next day and just join the GOAT District pods.
We should just pod during the game. I feel like that might.
No, thank you. We'll fall asleep when we look up and see Fields and Wentz going at it.
All right, guys. We'll check you all later.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Quick question for the brains. I have Kittle and Waller. Taysom Hill is on waivers. How much am I spending?
All of it.
All of it? 565 gone. Just shove it all in.
I mean,
It's Dynasty.
wouldn't want-
Dynasty FFPC.
let somebody else pay for it.
Let someone else, right?
Yeah. Don't know.
Dynasty is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys,
I'm going to say goodnight too. I got to do 45 minutes of waivers here before I go to sleep.
I'm right with Theo.